Hi everyone, this is Professor E. So tonight we're going to be talking about the functions. A function is basically or simplistic definition, is basically like a set of statements that perform a specific task. Okay, so whenever we have a set of statements all grouped together and they perform a specific task, it's called a function. So why do we have to use functions, or why do we need to talk about this? Because function will help make your program more efficient and effective. Instead of using, because sometimes you may use certain things multiple times. So that will be waste of time, waste of code, waste of effort. But function allows you to create the code only one time, but you can use it over and over. So that's why we call it, this is good for reuse, the code reuse, so we can reuse it multiple times. So that's why the function is useful, because it saves you a lot of time. You just have to do the code one time, and then you can, by calling or invoking the function, we'll talk about these terms in a minute, you can just, the program will execute the same code over and over, okay, just by calling the function. So let me explain what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to switch to our IDE. As I said, you can use any IDE you feel comfortable with. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's say this is the first day of school, okay, the first session of our semester. And I'm trying to basically welcome everyone, okay? So let's say Alexia, I want to send her like a welcoming statement. So I'm going to say here, welcome Alexia to, what I'm going to put here, hey Alex. And then I'm going to put another statement, welcome to computer science course, okay? And then I'm going to put here, I hope you will have a fun and uh, useful learning experience. Mhm. And I'm going to say, I'm not just putting whatever, just to make the points here. And then I'm going to add, have a nice day, Alex, for example. Okay? So this is a statement, right? Four statements. Okay. Now, what about if Robert is here? Okay, I have to welcome him the same way, right? Then I have to copy all of this and say it again, and then change the name from Alexa to Robert. But that's a lot of work, okay? Or Robert. And then here, Robert. Now, what about somebody else came? Okay, so I'm going to put here, and then welcome Steve. Okay, Steve is here. So I'm going to show him or welcome him the same way. What about if, I don't know, Maria came or Monica came? Whatever. So I have to say the same thing. See how much time I have to waste to do this? So the function allows me to waste time. I'm sorry, to save time and then avoid copying this multiple times. I just have to do it one time. So this is where the function comes into place. I'm going to delete all of this, and then I'm going to make a function. How do we make a function? First one, you have to put the header. You start with DEF. Now, of course, it would depend on which language you are using. In Python, we use DEF, like definition, basically. You are defining it. And then you put the name of your function. I'm going to call it work. And it always comes with parentheses. Why? To differentiate it from the normal variable. Because if you have it this, then it's a variable. Now, for the program to differentiate between the variable and the function, we use parentheses. Sometimes we put something inside the parentheses. We call them parameters. We can have example in a few minutes. Sometimes you don't have anything, but you have to have the parentheses. And then you put the colon, just like if statement and then the for loop. And then you put whatever you want to put inside this function, which is all this stuff right here. See? So I'm gonna cut this and put it right here. Make sure they're all indented, because if they are not indented, they're not part of the function, they're outside the function. Like for example, the last print statement is not part of the function. Why? Because it's not indented. So it's outside. That means after you finish the function, you're going to print have a nice day. So you need to make sure every single statement should be. Now, since the name changes, now I'm going to put the name here, variable that keeps changing. So anything that changes, put it as a parameter. So here I'm not going to put Alex, I'm going to put name. For example, I can put close this and then put either plus or comma and then put the variable and then you finish the rest. So hey, name. So everything that stays the same, you're going to leave it as is. Now at the end, I'm going to do the same thing. Have a nice day, and then I'm going to close it, and then I'm going to put the name, the variable, because this could keep changing. And then I'm going to end with that exclamation mark. See, this is pretty much it. Now, if you run the program, nothing will happen. Why? Because you are creating a function. When you call it or invoke it, then it will take effect. I'm going to give you a very simple example. So let's think about the situation. Like for example, let's say you have a little problem with the AC at home. Okay, you have a problem at home. So you have two choices, right? Either if you know how to fix it yourself, which is very unlikely the case. Okay. So you have to fix it yourself. You can fix it yourself if you know how. Okay. But most of the time, if you don't know, or most likely you don't know, then you're gonna call the AC guy. So you search for the phone number, or you did all your homework, and then you found a good one. Okay. Now the AC guy is waiting for you, right? He's not gonna come by himself. He has the tools, he has everything you need, but he's waiting for the call. You need to call him. Once you call him, then you give him the address, and then he will come and get the job done. That's exactly what function is. So here, this is the function just sitting there, just like the AC guy is waiting. He has everything. So this function is just waiting. How I'm gonna call it? So I'm gonna go right here and then mention the name, only the name, and then put the parentheses. And if there is anything required, name, which is most likely is gonna be string, so I'm gonna put here Alex. See, that's all what you need to do. So here we are calling the function. This is called calling the function. That means basically change any variable, any parameter to an actual value, okay? Or we call it arguments. So the actual value, like Alexia, Steve, Robert, we call them arguments. When we are using variable in general, then we call it parameter, okay? So this is parameter, this is argument. So now, see, when okay, I'm gonna try to make this as a comment. So when I run the program, nothing will happen. See, not why? Because the function is there, but you never call it. Now when I call the function, then it will take effect. See that? So the program will look and see and execute every single statement. Every time it goes through name, it's going to change it with the action, because this is what the name is. Okay. Now, if I want to repeat it again, I don't have to copy all of this. That's a waste of time. Only mention, maybe I'm going to leave like a space just to separate them. I'm going to put something like this. Okay. And then call the function again. How? Just to name and then parentheses. Now I'm going to put Robert. Okay. And then again, separate it with this, just so we don't get confused between the two. And then I'm going to call another one, Steve, for example. So now, just by doing this, I repeated this 3 times. Look how efficient it is. Okay. So all the code is one place. And then you can call whenever you need to. Just like the AC guy. How many times do you think the AC guy was going to go and visit places and houses? Many times. But he has the same tools, the same knowledge, the same skills. Everything is the same. He's just sitting there waiting. He's not going to come until somebody else will pick up the phone and then call him. He's waiting next to the phone or the email, whatever the contact is. And then once he gets that call, so that's why this is called a call. So now when I run it, we're going to see 3 times. Can you see that? So the first one, everything stays the same unless the name changes here. See? So this is basically the idea of the function. Function, you create the code in one place and you give it a name and then sit in there until you decide to call that function, or just like in math, like in math, you put like a function like this. I'm going to put it here as a comment. When you put like a function like f x, in math, equals 3x plus 2. So basically you have this. What is x? X is general, any number. Now, once I replace x with the number, that becomes the argument. So when I say, for example, that, okay, evaluate this expression or this function by using the value of 2, for example. So you're going to put f2, and then every time you see x, change it with 2. So 3 times 2, 6 plus 2 is 8. So this is 8. And then you can do it for number 5, number 6, and then again, see 1, 0, and so on. So it's pretty much the same thing, okay? Of course, there are a few differences, but the concept is the same. A function is a block. You could call it a block of statements of code that perform a specific task, okay? So as you can see here, all what it does is just print this 4 statements welcoming the students, okay? But you can do it for anything. Like, for example, I can create another function, def. Let's say I want a function that takes a number and then prints all the numbers from 1 to that number, for example. So I'm going to call it many times, for example. So I need a number, right? So that number, I'm going to call it num. Now I'm going to use, I want this function to print all numbers from 1 to that number. If that number is 8, so it's going to print 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 8. So in this case, of course, we have to use the loop, right? So I'm going to put here for every x in, if you remember the loop, range, I want to start from 1. So I'm going to put 1. And then remember, if I want to include the number, I need to add 1 more because the second number is not included. I hope you still remember this from the loop. So for x in range 1, print what? So I'm going to put print the number x, and then just put, if you want to do it, horizontally, you get that. So again, when I run the program, okay, when I run the program, nothing will happen, or at least this function will not take effect unless I call it. How do I call it? So let me go right here, and then again, let me separate with this, and then I'm going to put what? The name of the function. What is the name? Many times. I'm going to put many times, and then I need one number. So that number, let's say 8. Okay. So let's see what the program will do. Run the program, and then see from 1 to 8. That's how simple it is. What about if I don't want from 1? I want it from a particular number to another, let's say from 2 to 8. I want the function to take 2 numbers, the starting point and the ending point, and then print all the numbers in between. So I'm just going to change this one a little. I'm going to put, let's say, start, and then end, or maybe like I don't want to use end because sometimes it has a special meaning. So I'm going to put, and then I'm going to put finish. Wait. So here I'm going to put start. So you just have to make a few changes and then finish plus 1 because the second one is not included. That's it. So this will get the job done. But now if I run the program, I'm going to get an error. Why? Because they don't match. When you call the function, you use only one number. But when you define it, you have 2. So the program is going to say, there is something wrong. I'm expecting 2 numbers. Why do I have only 1? So it's not going to work until you add. So for example, I'm going to put 3, 8. That means basically what you are saying is you are replacing start with 3 and you are replacing finish with 8. Okay. So if you run it, see that from 3 to 8. And then do the same thing for all of them. So that's what the function does. Okay. Now, We have two types of functions, by the way. This one is one of them, when basically it's not returning anything. It doesn't give you anything back. It just does something like print or make some changes, but basically it's not returning anything. What I mean by return, if I ask you, for example, can you add these two numbers for me, 3 and 5? Am I expecting an answer from you or not? What do you think, Alexa? Am I expecting an answer if I ask you, can you please add 3 and 5 for me? Am I expecting an answer or not?
I would expect an answer.
Yeah,
Yes.
that means I need an answer from you. That's exactly what we
Oh,
mean by return.
yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying no. I'm just giving you an example. That means whatever the answer is. But I'm expecting because I'm asking you a question and I need an answer back. But if I say, welcome to computer science course, I'm not necessarily asking you to say anything, right? I'm just welcoming
No.
you. Like here, this is called void. Void, that means you are doing something, but you are not expecting anything back. Now, let me give you an example. What does return mean, like return statement? And you can see the difference. So I'm going to make one. Let's say the same example that I do, which is adding. Let me call it add. And I want to add two numbers. So I'm going to put num1 and num2. Okay. So this basically, this method or this function, all what it does, it returns the sum of these two. See? What's the difference between this and this? Now, this one, if it returns something, that means I can save it. If I ask you, what is 3 plus 5? The return has to be a number, right? Because I gave you two numbers, you're going to add them up, you're going to get a number, which means if I go right here, I can save that number. I can say sum equal, look, add. Because I know this function, it returns something, which means a number. And then you can do whatever you want. You want to print it, you want to save it. So here I'm saving it in a variable called sum. See, if I put 5 plus 9, so that means the value of sum is 14 now. To prove it to you, I can print it. I can put print and then put sum. So you're going to say here that sum is 9. Let's run it. See that? 14, can you see that? Now, can I do it for the others? Look, if I put welcome, nothing will happen. Why? Because it's not returning. You're going to get an error. The program is going to say, what are you doing? Here, it's not returning anything. So there is nothing to save. So if you run it, look, you're going to get an error. Look, it's pointing. That means this is not returning something. You just do it by itself. Okay? Or even if you put the name, let's say here, as I said, Maria, not you can have the same problem. See? So, but it's not saving. If I put sum, nothing will happen. No? So that's the difference between return. Return, it gives you something back. Let me give you another example here. So we did the add, right? As you can see right here, add. So you can save it here. Let me do it again. So put sum equals add 5, comma 9. I can create another one, which is returning the average. So what you're going to do, I'm going to do the same thing. Okay. The same thing. So I'm going to put df, and then I'm going to call it average. And average, instead of using two numbers, I'm going to use 3. So I'm going to put, let's say, A, B, comma, C. Okay. And then I'm going to say, okay, calculate the sum total equals A plus B plus C. And I want you to return, I'm sorry, that was something. And then return what? Total divided by 3. So this function, all what it does, it takes 3 numbers, A, B, C, it adds them up, and then it divides them by 3, which is the average. Okay. So let me do the same thing right here. I can print it. I can print, since it is returning, that means I'm printing a number. So I'm going to put average. Remember, average function return a number, and I want to print that. So I'm going to put here, let's say 10, comma 20, comma 30. So if I run the program, So the program is going to say, okay, first, is this returning something? Because I'm printing something. That something has to exist. So the program is going to check, oh, average, oh, it's returning something. So there is a number that needs to be returned, okay? So and then it works. So let's run it and see. And sure enough, we get 20. Where did we get 20 from? So it is 10 plus 20, as you can see, plus 30. So that's 60 divided by 3 is 2.0. Okay? So that's the difference between the a return function and the void. We call it void. Void, it does not return anything. It does something. Like as I said, for this one, it's not returning. If you don't see return at the end, then definitely it's not a return statement. Okay, and then you can return anything, like you can return a boolean, you can return string, you can return a float, you can. So to give an example, let's say I can create a function that check if the number is even or odd, for example. So I'm going to put def, and I'm going to call it is even. It takes a number, I'm going to call it value, and then it's going to return true or false. So it's going to check the number. If value, and then we put the remainder, remember that? So remember, if I divide by 2 and the remainder is 0, that's definitely an even number. So we're going to put a return true. Otherwise, else return, I have to put the code in here, return false. It should be uppercase. See, so this function, all it does, it takes one number, any number, and then it will check. What happened if I divide that number by 2? Is the remainder 0? Then it should return true. Otherwise, it's going to return false. So again, if you run, nothing will happen. Okay, just like the AC guy, it's just sitting there. So now to call it, I'm going to go anywhere here, and then I'm going to call it. So I'm going to say, okay, print, because if you don't print, if I just call it, then it's going to stay in the memory of the computer, but you're not going to be able to see it until you use print. So if I use is even 90, okay? So there is an answer, there is something returned, which is false, right? But since you did not print it, you did not save it, so there is nothing wrong. But you're not going to see it. To be able to see it, you have to use print, and then you're going to see false because it's not. So now you're going to see false, as you can see. See, false. Okay, so you can return anything. You can have two names, first name, last name, and return the full name. So you can do all kinds of things. Definition, let me call it full name. So it takes first and last name. And then you're going to put the return first, maybe like a little space. And then you put the last name. See? So again, this is a function. It's just sitting there. If you want this function to take effect, so you have to call or invoke that. So I'm going to put print, let's say, Alex, yeah. So this is first name. Now, if I don't put space, then it's going to put them together with nothing in between. So if I run it, so you're going to see Alexa and that space that I added, Chavez. So that's just like a normal function. So you can put any kind of function. There is something also very, very important for you to remember. We call it a default argument. Default argument. Can you see this add right here? I have two numbers, okay? All what it does is just add two numbers, like what we have here, okay? Now, I can do something, which means I can say, well, this first number, by default, it is 10. That means if the user forgot and gave me only one number, so that's number 2, the first one by default, it is 10, okay? So let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I call the function and then I have only this, what is that supposed to be? That means this is the second number. the first number by default is 10 because it's not mentioned. If I mention it, then the first number is 40, so that's going to give me 60, right? Let's see if I missed something here. 9, 2. Oh, the order. If there is an argument, it has to be the second one. So num1, it has to be from the end. You cannot start from here. You can start from here. So here I'm saying is, if you have two numbers, then the first one is the one that is given. Second one by default, if it's not given, if it's not provided by the user, it will be 10. So here in this case, I use both of them, which means I'm not going to use the default value of 10. So the program will just add them up. As you can see, it's going to be 60 here. Okay, where is it? Right here, 60. Now, what happened if I don't? So what happened if I put only 40? What do you think is going to happen? So the program is going to say, okay, we have the first number. What about the second number? Oh, the second number by default is 10. So that's going to add them up and give you 50. See that? 50. And then you can have both of them. But if you start from the end. So I can say, for example, here it's 5. So now we have three different ways to call the function. I can either use two, and all of them are correct. So I can either use two numbers or let me use, let me just print them. So this way I can use difference. So I'm going to put here print. So I have three options or three possibilities. Either you're going to come up with these two numbers, and in this case, the program is going to add them up and then give you 1/3, or one of them is mentioned, let's say 15, but the second one is not, or none of them. And all of them are correct. So if I put this add, of course, I have to have the parentheses. All of these three are correct, and there is nothing wrong with them. Why? Because of these default arguments. That means either I'm going to have both of them. In this case, this default values will be ignored, and I'm going to use the one I have, which is in this case 40 and 90, so 130. Now in the second situation, I have the first number 15, but I don't have the second one, so the second one will be 10. So it's going to be what? 15 plus 10, 25. Now in the third situation, none of them is there, and in this case, I'm going to use both of them. That's going to be 15. Okay, so let me choose a different number, so this way we don't have two of them. 15. Okay. So if I run it, look, I didn't get any error. So all of them are correct. 130, 25, 15. 130 when both arguments are there. 25, I have only the first one, so second one will be replaced by the default value. And then the last one, none of them was provided, and I use both of them as default arguments. Okay, so sometimes you may need to use this for whatever reason. Maybe the second value is always the same, just for convenience, basically to make things easier for you. Okay, so that's pretty much how the function works. Does this make sense? Any questions before we move forward? Can you see now the significance and the importance of the function?
Absolutely.
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So that's basically, you can make function of anything. And the most important thing, you want to make so the function is not something to make your program difficult or complicated. It's exactly the opposite, because you don't want to waste time doing the same thing over and over. So do the code in one place, name it, give it a name so you can access it. The program can access it anywhere, and then you can use it over and over. Now, let me show you where you can use this in an efficient way. And this is what the project number 2 is about. So I'm going to delete all of this so I can have more space. So let's say I want to create 5 5 or 4 functions, just to use a simple example, just for arithmetic operation. One for adding, one for subtracting, one for multiplying, and one for dividing. So I'm going to put here, let's say add. Okay, so let's say num1, num2. Okay, so we always put the colon here, and then let's say return num1 plus num2. Okay, and then for the sake of time, so I'm just going to copy and paste and then create another one, but I'm going to call it subtract. So in this case, it's going to subtract. Now somebody may say, why are you using num1 and num2 here, and then you are using it also here? That's a good question. Is there any confusion between the two? Why didn't you use just another variable, say a, to avoid any kind of confusion? Okay, that's a very valid question. The answer is there is no confusion. Why? Because they're local variables. This variable, num1, num2, they're not recognized anywhere outside the function. The program recognizes them only inside the function, which means if I do something like this, and then I print num1, I'm going to get an error. The program is going to say, what are you talking about? What is that num1 or num2? Why? Because they are not part of the function anymore. So if you declare something inside the function, it becomes a local variable. So here you have the choice. You can use, if you want to use a different variables, you can do that like here. But if you use the same, they're different. It's like when you say, for example, Robert, for example. Okay, because I'm talking about this classroom. What about if you have a next, like a classroom next door, and also they have somebody called Robert? So when I call Robert, you are going to respond. But if the other Robert or the other instructor called Robert in the other classroom, you're not going to respond. Why? Because we are talking about different scope, right? Robert, you have only one in our scope. So you are the only one who's going to respond. And then when you go to the next classroom, they have their own, but this Robert is different than the other Robert. Does this make sense? So we are limiting the scope. So the program knows, even though it's the same name, but we are talking about two different objects. That means a different scope. We call it scope. Scope is basically the lifetime of the variable. So if I go beyond the function, num1 and num2 will not be recognized. So that's why it's okay. You can put num1 multiple times, and there is no confusion because they are different. Different. Different entities, you can call them entities, or different type of object or variable. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the rest. So let's do it. Multiply. Okay, and then I'm going to multiply this by this. Okay, and then finally I'm going to put the divide. So I'm going to divide this by this. Okay. Again, when I run the program, nothing will happen. It's just like the AC guy. AC guy is waiting. He's not going to come by himself. You have to pick up the phone and call the AC guy so he can come, bring his tools and everything he needs. Then he can get the job done. Okay. So again, so let's say, and that's where the project 2 comes into it. Let's say I need to put like what do you call it, the menu. So let's say I'm gonna say this is a simple calculator. Okay, I'm creating a simple calculator here, and I'm gonna give people a choice. So I'm gonna give them, okay, this is the menu, 1 for addition. Okay, I'm gonna give them, like when you go to the ATM and then you see like a menu. 1, do this. 2, make deposit. So number 3, we withdraw. Number 5 or number 4, check the balance and so on. So you have to give people choices and then give them the chance to pick one of them. Or they can keep picking, like you can use the loop. So as long as they didn't, for example, press 5 or exit, then keep asking them, okay, do you want to, to choose another option? So subtraction. And then they just do the same thing, and they just grab it. So as you can see, when I run the program, I'm not going to see the function. All I'm going to see is just this menu. Okay. And then, so this is subtraction. This is multiplication. And it's number 3. And division. Okay. So when I run the program, that's all what you see. See? And then we have to ask them to choose, right? So I'm going to put here, print, please choose your arithmetic operation. And then, of course, we're going to save it, right? So I'm going to call it choice equal. And then, if you remember, you put int and then you put inputs. And then, oh, I can just put this one inside. So you don't have to print. You can do both at the same time. Okay. So now when you run the program, that's what you're going to see. So you're going to see the menu, simple calculator, addition, 1, 2, subtraction. Okay. Now please choose your arithmetic operation. So the user will pick one of these numbers. Okay. I can even explain to them that they need to choose from 1 to 4, just to give any help they can make things easy for them. So just like when you go to the ATM, they will give you like extra information to help. So when I run, they know what they mean. Okay. Do I have to type addition, subtraction, or just the number? So you always have to explain. And then now it's time to use the if statement, and then instead of like putting the code, I'm just gonna call the function. Okay. So I'm gonna say here if choice, or maybe the first one, let me ask him about the two numbers first, and then I will either add or subtract or divide. So I'm gonna put num1, just like what we did here. I'm gonna put inputs into the first number, because I don't want to repeat this multiple times. Okay, so it's good to ask them about the numbers, then ask them which one they're going to use. Otherwise, we're going to repeat the same thing for each operation. So enter the first number. And then, of course, you're going to do the same thing for the second number. So now I have both numbers. Now it's time to use the if statement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put if choice, I already have the choice, if choice equals 1. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to repeat that the addition part. No, I already have it. So I'm just going to put print. I'm going to put the sum is, and then call the function. Remember, it's returning. That means there is a number back that I'm going to get. So I'm going to put add. I already have the numbers, num1, or you can call them to avoid any confusion. So val1, val2. If you're concerned that you may get confused, so just to use different variable. So I'm going to put val1, comma, val2. So this will give me the number. Why? Because it's returning. We talked about that, right? It's going to give me a number back. Okay, so let's try it and see. So it's going to see choose your arithmetic operation from 1 to 4. Okay, I'm going to choose 1 because that's the only one I have. Okay, so if I put 1, you see, I could show 1, 2, 3. It's not typing this. So let me put this one first. The sum is, so if I put this first, put it here, ask for the number. Oh, I need to start first. So let me get the numbers first and then ask about the choices. So if choice is number 1, the sum is satisfied. So run the program, enter the first number. So it's going to be 15. No, it's not something. Enter the number, the first number, what's input, and val to choice. 10, it's not talking the numbers. It's happens. So we type this into the first number, and then we save it in val1 and val2. Choice is equal. Please choose your arithmetic operation. And then we choose from 1 to 4. So, all right. Okay, choose the number. Said, okay, fine. 10, okay, 20. Okay, so now I'm going to, if choice is equal to 1, so it's going to ask me to choose. Okay, enter your arithmetic operation, number 1, and then, okay, I put plus, I'm supposed to put comma. You put plus only if they have the same data type, like string and string, integer, integer. Otherwise, you put comma. So let's do it again. Enter the first number, 10, 20, enter, and see, 30. And then you could do the same thing for the rest. Okay? So that's basically what the project number 2 is about. It's about the same thing. Maybe different functions, but it's exactly the same structure. So you're going to put if it is 2, then you do the same thing. You copy and then stuff calling the add. You're going to call the subtract and the same thing. The difference is, and then you put subtract here. Okay? And then you continue. Let me just copy this. And then the rest is the same way. Okay? So this one will make it much easier than repeating the code multiple times. Okay, I just have to do it one time, ask about the two numbers, ask about the choice, and then look, all the code is already in the function. How many times I can call it? There is no limits. You can call it over and over, as you can see. This is 2, this is 3. I'm gonna put here the product is, and then call the function. So what happened is the program is going to go choice equals 1. Okay, the sum is going to stop and then go find that function. It's going to stop temporarily. And then it's going to look, oh, this is the function. And then going to replace num1 with the first number 10, number 2 with 20. It's going to add them up and give me the answer back. Then it's going to go back and finish the code. That's exactly what happened. Okay, so when you call in a function, the program will temporarily stop the execution of the main area and then go to that function, execute every single. And now here you may not appreciate the significance here of the function because it's only one line. But I want in real life, you know how many lines of code in a function? 1,000 and even millions of lines of code in real life, like in big softwares and big programs. So here, just to make it easy, we put only one line. That's why it's kind of, it's not easy to, to see the importance and the impact. But in the real life, the function has so many lines of code. That's why you can see the big difference that it makes. All right, so this is the same thing. So the product, and then finally, we have the quotient. Is, and then I'm going to call divide. Okay, now let's run it and see. As I said, this is exactly how your project number 2 will look like. You're going to create the function separately. Okay, and then you're going to put the menu, the choices, depending on what you are asked to do. And then you ask whatever the user needs to provide. And then you're going to put F statements, but instead of putting the code, you're going to call the function. And remember, you're not going to get full credit if you don't, because your program may work fine, but you are not calling the functions. You are not using function as a main part of your program. So that's why you may not get 4 credits. So make sure that you call the functions to get the job done. All right, so let's run it, make sure it's working. So this is the menu, enter the first number. So let's say 28. Second number, I forgot to change it to second number. So 28 and then 7. So if you hit the enter key, it's going to ask you which choice? Choice number 4. So what is 4? I forgot to change it as well. So that's division, okay? And then what is the quotient? Oh, I forgot. So I choose 4, but I forgot to change it because the program looks, oh, we don't have 4. So I'm going to put 4 here. Now we have a problem here. What happened if I divide by 0? See? So here, okay, there's no problem when you add, when you subtract, when you multiply, there's no restriction. But when you divide, what happens when you divide by 0? You get an error. Let me show you here what I'm talking about. If I put here 4, I'm sorry, the first number, let's say 14, and then I put the second number 0. That should not be allowed, right? So I'm going to get an error. If I run, see, going to get an error if it chooses number 4. See, I get an error. How can it prevent? Because we're not supposed to. So in here, I need to make sure that the second number is not 0 before I call the function. That's going to make my program even more robust, more powerful. So I'm going to put here, if number 2, or whatever the val2 is equal to 0, maybe I'm going to put statement that, okay, you are not allowed or something like that. You are not allowed to divide by 0. You should know better. Else, then you can call the function, see? So that will make your program much better, see? Make sure everything is indented. This one is not. See? So now when I run the program, it's going to ask me, okay, what is the first number? 12. What is the second number? 0. Okay, so far it's not going to say anything because they don't know, the program does not know which arithmetic operation, because if it's addition, then you should even ask about the second number if it's 0 or not. So it's going to wait until you say 4. So when I say 4, that's when they're going to ask. Oh, see, you are not allowed to divide by 0. So that's going to prevent that error from happening. If I don't have that if statement, then I'm going to get an error and the program will crash. And if there is any code after this, then it's not going to be run. All right, everybody get this? Any questions? Any comments?
No, you made it very clear. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you, Virginia, for coming, and Alexia and Robert. So I hope you find this one useful. Please take time to, okay, I'm going to post it probably either tonight or tomorrow. So sometimes, you need more time to make sense of everything and totally understand that. And also take time to go over the PowerPoint. Also some like special cases, sometimes I don't cover it, but I try to cover the most important thing that you will always remember. So after this class, you will remember this. Why? Because it makes sense, it's very easy to grasp. But the small details, you're not going to be using it a lot until maybe an advanced class or something. All right, so thank you so much. I'm going to stop here the recording.